The Game 4 draft between Gen G and KT was a draft canyon, no pun intended. You can see almost every AD fighter junglers out from Fearless, and Wukong is always going to be banned on red side here. So the only jungle options left are utility or tanks. Personally, I'd go Ivern on first pick here, but it's pro play, so Ivern doesn't really exist. Realistically, Gen G can go with Maokai, Skarner, or Sejuani here, and they go with Skarner. Still a really strong champion, it's a completely fine pick. The Mundo Kalista rotation from KT is just kind of weird to me. There's not really any synergizing themes here, but looking at the remaining AD pool, Kalista's probably the next up in the meta. And we just love the meta, don't we? Anyways, here's where Gen G really began to lose the draft. You have two primary options playing into Kalista. Match her lane power and try to shut her down early, or outscale her past 3 items and outrange her. Champions like Draven for the first option and Jinx or Kog'Maw for the second option would work very well. Gen G though do neither of those with a Lucian Braum rotation. Lucian does not beat Kalista in lane, does not outscale her, and does not outrange her, and he actively loses the 1v1 to her as well. While Lucian Braum's a strong 2v2 combo, it can't really function in the game here already. You can also safely assume KT's going to lock Renata next to pair with Kalista, so you want to pick long range anyways and not have to run into Renata ult. Also, Braum really struggles in lane against ranged characters, so the double range is going to make Braum really struggle early in the game, and they're going to have perma-prio KT, that is, to get as many early dragons as they want. Gen G don't seem to recognize any of this and take one big step toward ending their season early once again. KT R4 Cassiopeia, which again looking at the Fearless pool in Game 4 is a fine pick. I think Morgana here is really the only high tier AP mage mid laner left, but it's kind of fallen off in pro play, even though I think it's still really strong. Picks like Karma, Seraphine, or Lux could also work, but would probably struggle early into the Skarner gank pressure. If one of those champions loses flash, they are super vulnerable to ganks. Here again on last rotation is where Gen G solidify the loss though. Blind pick Yorick, and it's not even the blind pick part that's bad, that's inevitable on blue side, it's just a Yorick pick. What pros have failed to recognize when picking this champion is that his biggest strength is split pushing, not 5v5 teamfighting. So if you pick something like Yorick or Fiora for example, you want to build a comp around it, picking a 4v4 that can sustain health over time and hold standoffs around objectives. Champs like Seraphine, Soraka, Ezreal, Poke champions are good at that for example. Either way, pros don't consider split pushing a viable option for some reason, and always 5v5 on Yorick, making him look pretty useless even when he's in strong spots in the game. Another big problem here is that KT have Cassio and Kalista. How in the world is Yorick hitting either of them ever? Pretty doggone bad pick if you ask me. The Anivia pick actually isn't bad here because it does well into the Cassio and Kalista thematically, but overall looking at Gen G's comp, the big issue is lack of damage. Anivia builds mostly defensive these days. We've established Yorick can't hit the carries already, and Lucian is hard outranged. Add in the fact that you have 3 melees and a short-ranged aggro ADC running into a Renata, and it's all a recipe for disaster. It really was the Lucian and Yorick picks that lost this draft for Gen G. With Ornn on R5, it's more or less a guaranteed win for KT, with longer range, better scaling, and advantageous teamfighting themes. Now if I'm Gen G here, I'm first picking Ivern without a doubt, and as soon as I see Kalista come in, I'm slamming Kog Lulu, which outranges and outscales Kalista, and Kog also just does really well into Kalista in the lane phase because he can just stand there and auto attack her. Now not wanting to run into Renata, I would stay long range, so I'll go with Tristana mid and Ornn blind pick top lane. You can even go completely a different direction and go pseudo deathball comp into 2 tanks and a Kalista. Something like Swain mid, which does well into cast anyways, Aphelios Seraphine, Maokai. You can even do Gwen jungle, which would absolutely destroy Mundo. There are a lot of options here, and Gen G did none of them. Let me know what you guys thought of this Game 4 draft. Thanks for watching, see you next time.